is this? Sorry, I'm not gonna have the mic on for any substantial period. I just had a website up for something. And then I searched a thing just to check. Where is this? Doesn't say. That's too far. Okay, never mind. Oh no, I didn't record those prank calls. Those weren't me. That was a guy called Longmont Potion Castle. This is gonna be loud. Hang on. Oh, did this crash? Yeah, it probably crashed. Probably does not like being alt-tabbed for a while. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna do some fake driving. Because I'm back to being unhappy, and it's a good way to zone out. Bye! For the mic, I mean.
There's this moment during the Cuban Missile Crisis that's so incredible it doesn't sound real. But we have confirmed this with people who were there. Victor Galinsky wrote about this for the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. He said basically, nuclear war seemed so imminent that the underground headquarters of the Strategic Air Command in Nebraska went into lockdown. Nobody was allowed to enter or leave. He said the general in charge told the staff he expected an order to launch nuclear missiles any moment, and also expected that they would all die from a Soviet counterattack. And everybody was allowed to make one phone call home to their family. But in that call, they were not allowed to say why they were calling. What do you say in that situation? Galinsky writes, the conversations were about scraped kids' knees and sick dogs. It was a scene straight out of Dr. Strangelove. And of course, right? What can words do when you're staring death in the face? Well, today on our program, we have two stories where ordinary people rise to this exact task. They see death standing there, and they open their mouths, and truly amazing things happen. We have two stories for you today, and to say anything else about these stories, I think would be a spoiler. Also, I want to give every possible second to these stories. From WBEZ Chicago, it's This American Life. I'm Ira Glass, and let's just get to it with the first act of our show. Act one, really long distance. So remember that tsunami that hit Japan 5 years ago? March 2011, giant black waves more than 30 feet tall hit Japan. A guy in a little town called Otsuchi shot this video. You can hear him yelling, all the houses are washing away. Otsuchi had been there for 100 years. In 30 minutes it was gone, almost totally flattened. The tsunami and the earthquake that went with it killed 6 times more people than died in 9/11. Over 19,000 people. Another 2,500 are still missing. And in the aftermath, of course, families struggled to figure out how they were going to move forward without the people they loved. And in that town of Otsuchi, it led to this new, ritual is not exactly the right word for this, but it's something close to that. This thing that people invented to stay connected to the dead. One of our producers, Miki Meek, has family in Japan, and she grew up going back and forth between there and here. And she watched this documentary about this thing people are doing in Otsuchi on the Japanese news channel NHK and got permission for us to play you some excerpts. Here's Miki.
Of all the areas in Japan affected by the tsunami, Otsuchi has one of the highest numbers of missing people, 421. Today, it's still partly in ruins and partly a construction site, as they try to rebuild the town on higher ground. But a year before the tsunami happened, this guy named Itaru Sasaki, he was already dealing with a loss. His cousin had just died, and Itaru was having a hard time figuring out how to talk about it. So he did something pretty ingenious. He went out and bought an old-fashioned phone booth and stuck it in his garden. It looks like an old English-style one. It's square and painted white and has these glass window panes. Inside is a black rotary phone resting on a wood shelf. This phone connected to nowhere. It didn't work at all. But that didn't matter to Itaru. He just needed a place where he felt like he could talk to his cousin, a place where he could air out his grief. And so putting an old phone booth in his garden, which sits on this little windy hill overlooking the Pacific Ocean, it felt like a perfect solution.
自分の思いを線ではねつながらないから
He's saying, because my thoughts could not be relayed over a regular phone line, I wanted them to be carried on the wind.
それで風の電話
So I named it the wind telephone, Kaze no Denwa. The idea of keeping up a relationship with the dead is not such a strange one in Japan. The line between our world and their world is thin. Lots of families keep a Buddhist altar for their dead relatives in the living room. My uncle has one for our family. There are photos on a little platform, and every day he leaves fresh fruit and rice for them, lights incense, and rings a bell. It's a way to stay in touch, to let them know that they're still a big part of our family. So after the tsunami and earthquake happened, word got out about Itaru's special wind telephone, that he was using it as another way to stay connected to the dead. Soon people started showing up randomly on his property and walking right into the phone booth. This has been going on for 5 years now. Itaru estimates that thousands of people from all over Japan have come to use his phone. A TV station asked Itaru and the people who come to use his phone if they could videotape their calls from a distance and put an audio recorder in the phone booth. They wanted to get a sense of how people are still grieving. I watched their documentary after the 5th anniversary of the tsunami back in March. That whole week, all the news programs in Japan were airing memorial programs. But I found the calls in this particular program remarkable and moving for just how simple they were. One woman from Otsuchi, named Sachiko Okawa, showed up one afternoon. She's 71 years old and lost her husband in the tsunami. She regularly brings her 2 young grandsons to the phone booth, and you can tell by how casually they talk to him on the phone. They squish into the phone booth with their grandma, wearing matching blue and black striped shirts. Sachiko starts the call by picking up the receiver and saying hello. her oldest grandson quickly jumps in. Hi, Grandpa. How are you? I'll be in 4th grade next semester. Wasn't that fast? Daina, my younger brother, he'll be in 2nd grade next year. Then Sachiko corrects him. She says, no, Daina will be in 2nd grade this year, not next. Yeah, this year. A lot of calls were just like this. Straightforward updates about life. The kind of quick highlights reel you might give to any family member you were catching up with on the phone. The boy, he then tells his grandpa, Grandma's fine too. I'm giving the phone to Daina now. Daina, his little brother, grabs the phone. Grandpa, I finished all my homework. Sachiko urges him to keep talking. He says, everyone is doing fine. Then he hangs up. They all say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
As they're walking out of the booth, Daina says, maybe Grandpa will say he heard us. In another call, a woman in a puffy winter jacket with a fur-lined hood shows up at the booth by herself. Her name is Kikue Hirano, and she's 66. She used to live in Otsuchi, but she moved away after she lost her house and her husband in the tsunami. Her husband was a deep-sea fisherman. His name was Myoji, and they used to talk and drink sake together at night. Now Kikue lives alone, about 50 miles away. But sometimes Kikue finds herself driving back to Otsuchi and to this booth. I watched her do this thing that a lot of callers seem to do. You hear Kikue actually dialing the rotary phone, saying some numbers to herself. 4257744. She's dialing the phone number for her old house in Otsuchi, the last place she knew to reach her husband. Then Kikue just stands in the booth in silence, holding the phone to her ear. Sometimes she fidgets around and tilts her head up and concentrates on the ceiling, the same way I do when I want to cry, but I'm trying hard not to. It doesn't work. Kikue brushes some tears off her face. Eventually, she hangs up. She lingers in the booth a little longer, hands clasped together in front of her, staring at the phone booth floor. She walks out. One pattern that the owner of the phone booth, Itaru, has noticed over the years is that more men than women come to use it. Not surprisingly, this is not a demographic that's known for sharing their feelings, especially the older farmers. They already have a reputation for not talking much. In one of the phone calls recorded in winter, a man with gray hair and a little towel hanging around his neck walks into the garden. This kind of towel is part of the uniform of Japanese farmers. They use them to wipe away sweat and clean their hands. This man opens the telephone booth door, and under his breath, you hear him say, "Huh, so this is the wind telephone." This appears to be his very first visit to the phone booth. He lost his oldest son in the tsunami. His son's name was Nobuyuki. He also lost his house and had to move into temporary housing with his wife. And recently, she got sick and also passed away. He calls her Okasan. It means mom in Japanese. It's what everyone in the family calls the female head of the house, even the husband. It's a very intimate, loving term. Hello? Nobuyuki. Is mom with you? Sorry to ask this, but take care of her, and your grandma and grandpa too. Mom? I'll come again, okay? Mom, I'll be back. Bye. He uses the towel around his neck to wipe his eyes. One of the things that makes these calls so poignant to me is all the understated ways that people are actually saying, "I love you," and "I miss you." I'd never say something so direct like that in Japanese. It's just not done. I've only seen people say it in the soap operas. Aishiteru. Even saying that right now feels weird. I've never said that to my mom or my grandparents. Take this call. It's winter. The phone booth is surrounded by snow. Hello? Mom? Where are you? He's an older man wearing a baseball cap. He also calls his wife Mom. His wife, daughter, and mother, they all went missing in the tsunami. It's so cold, but you're not getting cold, are you? Are grandma and our daughter Miyuki with you too? Come back soon.
な、早く見つかってみんな待ってるから。
Be found soon. Everyone is waiting for you.
な、
Okay?
まだまた伝えるか
I'll
ら。
build a house in the same place.
な、物なんだり食べてるよ。
Eat something, anything.
どこでもいいから生きてろ。
Just be alive, somewhere. Anywhere.
寂しいぞ。
I'm so lonely. He never says I love you directly. Real feelings are communicated through small gestures, especially ones of concern. Like when he asks his wife, "Are you staying warm? Are you eating?" And then promising, "I'll build a house for us." These are total heartfelt declarations of love. For other men, the phone booth is a place where they can finally say their complicated feelings out loud. They can voice their regrets. Anyone who's had someone close to them die knows this feeling. Like, I've kept having the same one-way conversation with my dad in my head ever since he passed away last year. I just keep telling him all the situations where I wish I had been kinder, more patient. One call I watched was from a young father with rectangle glasses and a long black jacket. He lost his family, both parents, his wife, her name was Mine, and a 1-year-old son named Issei.
父さん、
Dad,
母さん、
Mom,
みえちゃん、
Mine,
一世、
Issei.
震災からもう5年だね。
It's already been 5 years since the disaster.
もしこの声が届くなら話を聞いてください。
If this voice reaches you, please listen.
時々何のために生きてるかわからなくなる時あるんだよ。
Sometimes I don't know what I'm living for.
一世、お願いだからまた
Issei, please let me hear you call me Papa.
パパって声を聞かせて。新しい家でも
Even though I built a new house.
父さん母さん、
Dad, Mom,
みえちゃん一世がやないから
Mine and Issei.
意味がない。
Without all of you, it's meaningless.
返事が聞きたいのに聞こえない。
I want to hear your reply, but I can't hear anything. He hangs up the phone, takes off his glasses, and covers his eyes with his hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't save you. There's a couple phrases I heard callers tell the dead again and again. Shinpai shinai, don't worry about us, and gambatteru, which basically means I'm doing my very best. I'm enduring. In Japan, gambatteru, it's a catch-all slogan for slogging through life's many challenges, no matter how tiny or big. From trying to pass a test at school to grieving, you hear it all the time for everything. In the phone booth, gambatteru and shinpai shinai, these are key phrases to reassure the dead that the living, the people left behind, they're doing okay, even if they're not. People don't want to worry or burden their loved ones, even dead loved ones. Because most Japanese are Buddhist and generally believe that when someone dies, they're not suddenly relieved of all their earthly concerns. They're not automatically in heaven, happy and carefree. Many people believe that if the dead see a family member suffering, they can't let go of their earthly life. They hesitate to cross to the other side and end up stuck in a no man's land. I heard these reassurances in a call from a 15-year-old kid named Ren Kozaki to his dad. He arrived at the phone booth after spending 4 hours on public transportation by himself. Ren lives in a city much farther north that wasn't affected as much by the tsunami. But his dad was a truck driver who drove all over Japan. And in a last-minute schedule change, he got sent on a route that took him along the coast when the tsunami hit. He's been missing ever since. Ren went into the phone booth wearing a red backpack. And what he does in his call, you hear him signaling to his dad that it's okay. He should keep moving on into the afterworld.
父さん
Dad?
今みんな4人とも家族
The four of us are doing fine.
全員頑張ってるから
We're ganbatteru.
心配しなくていいよ
You don't need to worry about us. Shinpai shinai.
お父さんは元気
Dad, are you doing okay?
聞きたいことが一つある
I do have one question I want to ask you.
なんで死んだんだよ
Why did you die?
なんでお父さんなんだよ
Why did it have to be you, Dad?
なんで俺だけなの
Why just me?
ずっとそう思っててなんで俺だけだったの
I've always wondered,
なんで俺だけ
why am I the only one who is
周りとみんなと違う
different from everyone else? Anyways,
まあとにかくさ
please be found quickly.
さっさと見つかってねえどこにいんの
Where are you now?
何も見つかんないんだけど
They never found anything of you.
最後ぐらいさ
I wanted to talk with you again.
話がしたかったよ
Ren left the booth. In late February, he came back with his entire family. His mom, younger brother, and sister. They all drove down to Otsuchi together. And when they got to the phone booth, at first, they kind of awkwardly hung out in front of it. So to break the ice, Ren walks in and places the first call to their dad. He tells him,
みんな連れてきたから
I brought everyone with me today.
じゃあね
Bye. When Ren walks out, his family laughs. They say, that was so fast. Ren shoots back.
いや俺はみんなを連れてきたっていう報告だから
It was just a quick report to Dad that I brought everyone with me today. Next up are Ren's little brother and sister, who are 12 and 14 years old. They go into the booth together, and the sister is talking and laughing nervously.
なんて言うんだったっけなんて言おうかガチやばい
What am I supposed to say? What should I tell him?
待って出ないで出ないで
Wait, don't leave me alone in here. The sister picks up the phone, and let me just say, the mom told the film crew that this is a girl who has not said a single word about her dad to anyone since he went missing 5 years ago. So she picks up the phone and starts to cry. She asks her brother again, what should I talk to him about? Her little brother's name is Riku, and he tells her,
伝えたかったこと
say what you wanted to tell him. She says, are you trying to make me laugh, Riku? Riku says,
それは違うよ
no, I'm not.
と
Then she finally starts talking to her dad. The conversation is all over the place, and she's crying so hard she can barely talk.
お父さんのこと
Dad,
いつもクソ似てる人が
I'm so sorry I always used to say you were stinky.
バイオリン買ってくれるって約束を
What happened to your promise to buy me a violin?
もう自分で買うから
Now I'll have to buy one myself. Her little brother, who sticks close to her, he encourages her to keep going. He says,
何やと
what else? So she tells her dad,
中学校に入って新しくテニスを始めて
I started tennis in junior high school. I'm not in the top 8.
最後の試合には絶対ベスト
I want to be in the top 8 in our last tournament.
応援してね
Please cheer for me.
中1で初めてジャニー
I got hooked on this boy band, the Johnnies, when I was in my first year of junior high. I'm still hooked. They both say
ジャニージャニージャニージャニー
goodbye. They come out of the booth together. Now it's their mom's turn. Her kids tell her, "Itterashai,"
いってらっしゃい。
have a good trip, good luck. Ren, the oldest, he bows and waves to her. She walks in, picks up the phone, and lets out a big sigh. Where should I start? I feel like you're still alive, somewhere. We had so many things we wanted to do together. Over the phone, we always said to each other, "Are you alive?" "Yes, I'm alive." It was our password between the two of us, wasn't it? I can't ask you that anymore. Come back. We, all four of us together, we will be waiting. Bye. After she comes out, the family lingers outside the phone booth for a while. This was literally the first time they'd all talked about their dad together, since the tsunami happened 5 years ago. The youngest, Riku, he sat quietly on a bench with his head in his hands. The night before his dad disappeared, they went to a public bath together. His mom and older siblings tell him, "Riku, you don't need to keep your feelings in. Go ahead and cry when you want to." Ren, the oldest, gently teases him. He says, "See, he can't stop crying." Mom says, "Yeah, but..." He held back until now. It's okay, because you held back, you endured, until now. The sister then hands Riku her handkerchief. The mom says to her kids, "We were all about to fall apart. We were so broken. We didn't think we could make it through. And maybe that's why we never talked about Dad until now. But talking to him on the phone today, it changed something."
Miki Meek is one of the producers of our program. Thanks to NHK Sendai, who recorded all this and shared it with us. Coming up, two brothers in their 80s have a last chance to talk to each other before they die, and neither wants to take it. That's in a minute. From Chicago Public Radio, when our program continues. It's This American Life, I'm Ira Glass. Today's program, one last thing before I go. Stories that are about, well, they're about what power do words have in the face of death. We've arrived at Act 2 of our program. Act 2, Uncle's Keeper. So in the first act of our program, people kind of defy death by making small talk, and some talk that was not so small, with their dead relatives. In this act, somebody wants to do something very similar, make a connection that seemed impossible between people, except in this story, all the relatives are alive, which you'd think would make it super easy. The story comes from Jonathan Goldstein.
Hello?
Hey, Dad.
Hi, Johnny.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, you?
Good. Good Yom Tov.
Shana Tova.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. What's that mean?
I'm not sure.
Oh.
This is my father, Buzz. I'm calling him at his home in Montreal. And the reason we're talking crazy talk is because it's Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement, which seems as good a day as any to talk with him about forgiveness.
So I wanted to ask you something, and I just wanted to gauge your interest.
Yeah.
How would you feel about paying your brother Sheldon a visit?
I have no feelings about it. I'm not really interested.
You're not?
No.
My father, Buzz, is 80, and his brother Sheldon, his only sibling, is 85. And for the past 40 years, they've pretty much been on the outs. My father lives in Montreal, and Sheldon lives in Florida. And the last time they saw each other, over 20 years ago, was at their mother's funeral. when they had a fight over the details of the arrangements. Since then, they've hardly spoken. It worries me because there's not a lot of time left, and I don't want my father to have regrets. And my father has a profound capacity for regret. My mother gave up trying to reunite them years ago, after many attempts, so I know that if I don't push him, no one else will.
I'm not surprised that you're not jumping at the idea, but I'm a little surprised that you're as against the idea.
Yeah, time's passed. He hasn't shown much interest, so I'm respecting that, and I leave him alone.
What he did do was he called you on your 80th birthday not so long ago, and you felt good about that.
I called him on his 80th birthday.
This kind of tit-for-tat accounting is what always gets in the way.
You know what it is at this point with him? I'll tell you what it is. I don't think it's even anger. He's past anger, and he's past any feelings of animosity. He's past that. He just doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know, that's apathy. I mean, sometimes you at least hate or love their emotions. Apathy is nothing.
Yeah.
You know what, Johnny, as a child, even when I was 10, when I was 9 and 8, I was crazy about him. We had a great, you know, I loved him. He was the older brother. He was... Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening.
You know, I just looked up to him, and he had older friends. Sometimes he'd take me along with him, and he was good. Somebody trying to call here, pinging me here.
The most complicated question, the one I keep coming back to, is how did the bad blood begin? And there are many versions. An ill-fated trip to Montreal where Sheldon felt slighted about having to stay in my father's basement. An ill-fated trip to New York where my father felt slighted about having to stay in Sheldon's attic. Rude words spoken to each other's wives. In one version of the story, Sheldon's refusal to bring a table to my bris almost resulted in my being circumcised on an ironing board. But in the version being told today, my father was asked by Sheldon to pay more than his fair share for their mother's funeral.
And I said, you always working some kind of an angle. So he got furious. He started screaming into the phone, go to hell, drop dead, blah, blah, blah. That was how that ended. But I feel he's the kind of guy that he has angles like that, you know. He has angles. I always felt I was on the up and up with him, and he wasn't with me.
If you got a stronger sense that he was interested in seeing you, then would you...
Yes.
You would be more inclined to see him.
I wouldn't stay at his house, though. That's out of the question.
Okay, quick sidebar. Anytime I've ever raised the prospect of visiting Sheldon, no matter how hypothetical the scenario, my father always makes a point of insisting how no matter what, he would not stay in Sheldon's house, even if he was invited to, which I should point out, he never is.
I wouldn't stay at his house.
How come you...
I wouldn't stay there. I mean, it's not my thing.
How come you always bring that up? I mean,
because
normally when someone goes to
comfortable.
visit someone that they haven't seen in decades,